The thing that's true is that if we don't tell our story, somebody else will. And they haven't been telling that story right. And we can whine and moan all we want, but at some point you got to just put the boots on, get in the saddle, and tell the story yourself.
Welcome to the Future of Beef Show, produced in partnership with Drovers and Breeder. This is the #1 podcast for progressive ranchers and feeders looking to run smarter, more profitable, next-generation operations. I'm your host, Jim Johnson, from the Brands and Barbed Wire podcast, joined by Dr. Jessica Sperber, feedlot specialist at the University of Nebraska, and Ian Wheel, founder of Breeder, the cattle tech company helping producers raise, track, and trade high-performing cattle. What does it look like to carry a 100-year legacy into an uncertain future? In this episode, we sit down with Tucker Brown, the 6th-generation rancher, and the charismatic voice behind R.A. Brown Ranch's digital storytelling to explore what it means to be a rancher in the 21st century, balancing humor and heritage to connect across generations and cultures. This episode is sponsored by Corteva Agriscience. When weeds and brush get in the way, you'll find the solution at rangeandpasture.com. So, Tucker, welcome to the Future of Beef, like I said, and glad to have you. So, I can't imagine there's someone listening that doesn't know who Tucker Brown is. But if by chance there is, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, your family, where you guys ranch, and some ranch history?
Yeah, sure. Well, I'll tell you, anytime I think that my pride becomes like I think somebody knows me, I get humbled real quick. So,
right?
Yeah, real quick. So my name is Tucker Brown. I'm the 6th generation to work at the R.A. Brown Ranch, and my parents own it and manage it now. We raise seed stock cattle and quarter horses. That's kind of our bread and butter. And Black Angus, Red Angus, and Sim Angus bulls is really bull development is really where we focus on our business, and we do some other things too. But that's just, again, that's kind of our bread and butter. My grandmother and granddad are still at the ranch too. Not as active as they used to be, but it's pretty cool. Now we have 4 generations on the ranch, from my grandparents to my 3 girls. So it's pretty special. And, but yeah, I do quite a bit of social media now. Kind of been a 4-year movement of, I guess I've been on the ranch, back to the ranch for 8 years now. And 4 years ago during COVID, I kind of put my toe into the social media area, and have just kind of mixed my passions of ranching and media. And yeah, the social media platforms have been a perfect area for that. And I have a blast with it. And so it's really taken me to some places that I've never been or never thought I would go. But it's been so fun.
Yeah, no, that's cool. So how did you really get started? I mean, did you post that first thing on Facebook or something, and it was like, oh, this looks like it might work? Or, I mean, tell us kind of how that all.
Yeah, it was during COVID, and whenever I came home, I was challenged by my parents when they said, if you come home, you can come back in 2 ways. Number 1, you can come back if a job is available, and if you are the person for that job, we will hire you for that job. And then the funny part I found out later was that they would pay me just a little bit, enough to make me hungry to start something myself, but enough to keep me there. But the other way is if I came back with a business plan to grow the ranch, to pay for another family to be there, rather than to split it up and divide it again. And so when I came back, kind of the marketing and media, I've done sports radio for 10 years now, and I do have my parents are both phenomenal speakers, and I've kind of fallen into that footprint of being a communicator. And so I love sports and media, and got to do sports broadcasting for 10 years on the radio. And they let me do that as well whenever I was home, after I came back home. But during COVID, Dad and I had kind of taken over and going to conventions and having a booth, and COVID hit, and we couldn't do that anymore. And data shows us that it takes 5 to 7 times for somebody to see your brand or what you're selling for them to remember it. And so we're like, man, how do we get in front of them? The conventions were our way of getting in front of them. And we've done some other things too. My mom's a talented photographer, and we do some newsletters, but so I took to social media, and I really it was kind of for fun. I did a I did a video. If you know Dale Brisby, he is the super puncher.
Yeah.
And so I did a video acting as my dad as the seed stock super puncher. I enjoy humor. I like to have a good time. And so I kind of made that video about my dad being the seed stock super puncher. And it did pretty good.
It went viral. Huh?
It went viral. For me, it went viral,
Right.
a couple 100,000 views. And I was like, whoa, that was really fast. Pretty fun.
How long in was that? Was that like early days or
that was 2020.
Yeah.
When that happened.
So you had to start like sports broadcasting at like 15 or something. I'm
Yeah,
assuming. If you did it for 10 years.
I'm trying to work out the maths here. Like,
well, this is my 11th year on the sports broadcasting. This
Okay.
year is. So,
Okay.
I started that in 2000. I guess it was 13.
So you're still doing that too?
Yeah, this will be the first year I actually step back and I'm not the host anymore. I'll be the color coordinator now. Taking a step back.
That's interesting.
Taking a step back.
So did you sit back and go, I'm going to write a business plan for this and think about it? Or was it more so like, now you've become this advocate for ranching, not just promoting the R.A. Brown Ranch, obviously. And
Sure.
It's like, did you sit back and think, I'm going to write a business plan, I'm going to change the world? Or is it more like, we'll give it a shot, see what happens?
Yeah, it was kind of more like that. We'll see what happens. It wasn't a part of my plan at all until COVID hit. I mean, we would post a few things about the sale, but never in a way of content creation was never really in our mind. It was more just pictures and talking about bulls. So reaching the consumer is what I do now, basically. But at the time, we were like, man, how do we push our bulls? So we do that, and then I started a video series of Saddle House Stories, and I would just say what was going on at the ranch. And what I found was when I thought I would be reaching customers, I was reaching consumers. And they were like, wow, cowboys are still alive. They're still a thing. Or, I didn't know you use lassos. Lassos, you still use those? And so I was like, wow, there's an avenue here that I like to talk about. Somebody wants to listen. And it just opened wide up. And then when TikTok came around, it just was the perfect avenue for what I was trying to do. In the spring of 21 is whenever I did that. But wanted to make a business plan. I went to NCBA convention in 2021, February, and they had a Beef Advocate of the Year award. And there was this young lady from California, and she was a first generation rancher, had 12 Hereford cows. Her and her husband were running it. And she was able to tell this really cool story of how she started and the trouble she has. And she had won that. And that was like a slap in the face to me, selfishly, like kind of hurt my pride. I was like, this California girl with 12 Hereford cows. And I've got this cool story of family and tradition and passing the ranch down and keeping the ranch and the family in the ranch. We use all this technology, but we still gather on horses. And I was just like, she just put me in my place. And so that's when I was challenged. I challenged myself. It's like, all right, this year is going to be the year that I do that I tell this story. Because if the first generation ranchers, which is the same, they're a part of us, they have a different story to tell, which is closer to what the consumer knows. But if there's nobody on the, multi-generational side telling that, then we're missing a really large spot. And so I was like, thank you to her, because she is the one who really got me going.
Yeah. It's amazing when you look at like how it's changed over the last bit though. Like, and the reason I asked for a business plan is like all the people I know in the industry, and there's a fair few of you now doing this, like it looks easy. And then you speak to them and they're like, I was up till 2 a.m. editing this video so I could do stuff. And then I'm out doing it. Like how much, I'm sure your dad still expects you to, lift some stuff and move some cattle.
Oh, sure.
So like, how do you fit it all in? Like how does it work with what you're doing today?
Yeah, that's a challenge, because the rancher and the cowboy in us says to put the phone away. And that's where I get my content, right, is on the phone. And as a good rancher, a good cowboy, you are paying attention on, what's the lead cow doing, or how is my horse handling. And so I'm still working on the ranch every day, focusing on those things. But I started to train my mind on things that our consumer never gets to see, or when is that when does that opportunity arise for me to catch a video of this?
Mhm.
And it really didn't start with anything fancy. I wasn't dancing and singing. I wasn't
Gunning.
yeah. I wasn't. So I wasn't doing those trends at the beginning. It was just more about talking about what we were doing.
Yeah.
And so it was easy because I knew what we were doing. And if I didn't, I'd better find out pretty quick. But just sharing that and pulling my phone out for a real short amount of time and then editing when I got home.
Yeah.
And so I was trying to walk that tight line of capturing that content, but not allowing that to get in the way
Right.
of what we were doing.
Yeah, I think it's interesting when you said training your mind to capture those, because there's a lot of times we'll be out as cattlemen out, looking at our cows or doing something, and you think in your head like, wow, that's a pretty scene or whatever, and then but training yourself to think, oh, I need to capture that is a totally different thought process. And so I hear you. And then you also do some sort of stage things as well. I noticed like some of your
Some
interns
skits.
and little skits and stuff like that. How did that sort of filter into that capturing that, introducing those people like to meet them and see them and some of that?
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I'm just a piece of the story. And so I like to share, those around me that make the ranch what it is. And what I found out was that the phone wasn't, me pulling out the phone and asking them to video me or me videoing them was annoying until some products started coming our way. And whenever we started getting maybe a few shirts or some sunglasses or they're like, hey, can I video that for you? But it's that way in life. When we bring people with us to success, they're more willing to be a part of it. But the skits, that's just kind of the humor and my personality coming out of me and mixing that humor. I enjoy, how can I tell a story in an entertaining way? I call it edutainment. That's a mixture of entertainment and education. And on social media, we find that most of the time when people go to socials, they go to be entertained and they don't go to figure out how much zinc is in beef, even though we want to tell how, how good it is for us. How good is this beef for us? How do we get that into their algorithm, or how do we, and most of the time I do that by.
We know the best in the beef industry watch this show, so we want to hear from you. We'll pick one listener to win this exclusive Future of Beef Yeti cooler. Follow us on Facebook or Instagram, send us your guest ideas, or just drop us a message. We'd love to hear your thoughts.
Figuring out what is trending and then mixing those two together. My family we think we're at our best when we mix technology and tradition. And so whenever I can do that on social media, I can, what are we doing right now? I mean, but one of my favorites was the Masters golf tournament. I love the Masters. And I was trying to figure out, what does ranching and the Masters have in common? Well, we both really are, what's important to both of those is grass and water. And so I tried to create a way to make it funny, to make it connect to a sports fan, a Masters fan, and then talk about the importance of grass and soil health and carbon sequestration at the same time. And that's a challenge.
Sure.
But it is the challenge that I really enjoy.
Yeah. Yeah. So as you grew this and you found out that, hey, I'm getting consumers, I'm getting an audience, getting sponsors, are you still selling bulls through it? And is it still, the original sort of reason you wanted to get in there is to help sell bulls? And so tell us a little bit about, from a rancher perspective or someone listening that doesn't have a social media presence, how do they get started, and is there still a benefit to, people coming to buy bulls or horses or whatever?
Yeah, basically, is your dad actually happy that's working, or does he just want the sunglasses too?
Tucker's out of my hair, as long as he's doing his thing.
I'm not sure.
Put the phone
but
down.
I did get a free pair of sunglasses.
Yeah, that's that. So that's the long game. The long game. We always talk about short gain. Are we playing the short game and getting the quick success, or are we playing the long game? And so the long game is that you create a platform that does have people who follow you, trust your words. They recognize that you're working with the bulls daily. I'm able to show how I'm adding more trust to our customers because they see us taking the weights. They see us doing ultrasounds on the ribeye. They see us working on grow safe and feed efficiency. And so I can't get a dollar value from that. How much is that helping? I don't know. But there was a time where my parents had just been like, look, we know you're doing well. We know the ranch is getting views, but we need to cut back a little bit. We need you, on the feed truck more, or focusing on the cow herd more. And we had a bull sale, and it's one of our best customers. Buys 15 bulls a year for a long time. I mean, from my granddad and now from us. And so he came up afterwards. We had just had a really good sale, and he's like, "Hey, congrats on the sale." But I thought he was just going to talk to Dad, but he looked at me and he's like, "I've been meaning to tell you, I love your videos. Keep doing them. Keep doing them." And my dad, he reaches over. He was like, "I was just telling him that."
Sounds like
no, his idea.
Yeah. And so from that moment, I knew that there was real value from a man from that customer who has created this phenomenal business, started this ranch on his own, kind of came from scratch, and really business minded, super smart. He was able to see the value, or he was able to appreciate the value that was bringing to the beef industry and to the ranch in general.
Yeah. So let's move on to telling that beef story as well. And again, I think about maybe people that are watching, how important is it for us as ranchers and cattle people to tell that story and to tell it to consumers? And then maybe the second part of the question is with all the popularity of Yellowstone and stuff like that, do you think you got a little boost out of some people that maybe watch some of those type shows and stuff too?
Do they think, how many times do you say you look like Rip?
Yeah, all the time. If I have sunglasses on, it's always, "Are you Rip?" But the Yellowstone thing is real. The Yellowstone effect is real. I've never watched it, not because I hate it or anything. I just haven't. I was watching the Masters. I haven't watched it, but I do get questions about it all the time, and I am totally riding the tail of the Yellowstone effect. Like, it is real, and some people may hate it, but I'm going to use that to my benefit, right? But the advocacy, right now, if you were to ask a group of 100 people in Atlanta, Georgia, what they, where they've heard their information about the beef industry, it wouldn't be from ranchers, I don't think. And it would probably be from a news source that was not kind to us, is probably what would happen. And so the thing that's true is that if we don't tell our story, somebody else will. And they haven't been telling that story right. And we can whine and moan all we want, but at some point you got to just put the boots on, get in the saddle, and tell the story yourself. And so that's what I've started to do. And I found that there was, for the first time in my lifetime, being the cowboy is cool. And some people will say, like, "Well, yeah, it's always cool." But in the United States, this is kind of the first time in a long time that being a cowboy is cool.
Yeah.
And
in our communities, but then you go spend time in New York or LA, and different now, Yellowstone effect and everything else.
Right.
But 8 years ago, pre-COVID, like, it was anything that came up about beef had environmental damage,
Right.
should be a vegan.
Correct.
It was like, it's amazing to see how it's changed. And I think a big part of that is Yellowstone effect, but telling our story that goes with
I
it.
agree.
So what topics do you think, from what you've seen trending with consumers, do they care the most about? And what is the best way to get to the consumer level?
Well, I like data a lot. So as I started to dive into this and take this serious, that year of 2021, and more all the time, but I was looking up, what do our consumers want to hear? Because it's a whole lot easier for me to make what the consumer wants to see rather than make what I like to make and expect them to see it. And so, what is our consumer worried about? What do they want to see? And the things that are clear that they're worried about food safety. They're worried about how the animals are treated. And then you'll look at some hormones and antibiotics that they're worried about in there too, because the things they hear about that is really negative. And so I've really focused on the care we do for our animals, which is really easy. I don't ever have to say we really care for our animals. All I have to do is show it. Because if I'm able to show that in those videos, that when that storm comes, that I'm there, and if, talking about, man, I caught this calf just in time. If it would have waited another couple hours, it would not be alive. And so whenever I'm able to share that true story, it's way more powerful than me standing on a stage telling people we actually take care of our animals. So that story really connects with people. And agriculture has almost lost its face. And I don't know if that's the right way to put it, but we've kind of dehumanized agriculture in a way where now they think of big ag. Our consumer does. We don't. It's a small world. We see the people we love at all these conventions or at different sales, but whenever our consumer doesn't go to any of those, 98% of the people in the United States are not involved in agriculture. And so how do we reach them? I mean, social media has been my way to do that because they're not coming to Throckmorton, Texas.
Yeah. We, with a few of the beef council groups, like Nebraska it was in Nebraska. So Nebraska Beef Council funded a lot of it, but in addition to Kansas and Missouri, and they brought a group of dietitians from all of the most East and West Coast, essentially, ones that had no access to ag. They were wanting to teach them essentially the benefit of beef and a healthy diet, things like that. And the comments, so they came out and saw me at the university feedlot and we had a really good visit, but they'd also gone to a packing plant that morning and they had gone to a feed yard and they had gone to a very large cow-calf operation. And at the cow-calf operation, the dad was sitting there explaining what they do every day, and his 3-year-old boy was sitting on his lap sleeping. So the dietitians were like, this is like, it's all family. Like, even though they're raising thousands of animals, they said exactly what you said. We've been led over the years to believe that it's all, factory farming, for lack of a better term. But they're like, then we get out there and see these families that do this every day, but are still making time to visit with people like us. And giving time out of their day because they want to ensure that we as consumers and those who give advice to consumers on what products to be consuming for a healthy diet understand that it's not factory farming, that it can be a 50,000 head operation and it's still a dad and 4 sons that are running it. So I think that's pretty critical. But one way to do that is social media, like you mentioned, Tucker. And I think that we're getting better as an industry at realizing that we're way better off when the door is open to show the consumer the things that they don't get to see every day.
The interesting thing about that, as well, as we've always had the perception as ranchers of like, we want to tell them about how nutrition it is. What they want to see is the families that are bringing these cattle up, right? So like sometimes as ranchers, like, we're not bad for the environment. We're doing all this good stuff for soil carbon. We have got really nutritious feed. Like, you're trying to rebut all of these points rather than pushing what is positive. And I think that's been super interesting about the way you've been doing it. It's like, actually just get to know the human, right? And get to know the people behind it. And it's like, I think we all worry about too much about the data unless we should be connecting more on a human level.
Ever wondered if you could be getting more out of your cattle?
Breeder is the first technology company that's able to track and optimize cattle from conception all the way to the rail. This puts the power of data into the hands of the rancher and enables them to improve their profit line quicker than they ever have before.
My decision to partner with Breeder was made largely after seeing a demo where I realized what Breeder's doing is unlike anyone else in our industry. Connecting the data from the packing plant back to the feedlot, the stocker backgrounders, and the cow-calf, even connecting that data to the purebred breeder, will just open the door to improvement at a scale and a speed that we have never seen in this industry before.
I believe Breeder's putting ranchers in the driver's seat. We can make breeding decisions based on large amounts of data very quickly. The calves that are produced, they have a higher cutout value. Their ribeyes are more profitable, and it plays back to us.
As I'm out around the country, people are asking me about Breeder, and I always recommend Breeder. It's the tool for the future.
Head to breeder.co and book a demo with the team today.
Oh yeah, I agree. And it's way easier to relate that way too. And so that's what another thing about creating that content is, how can we make it relatable? And if I had to kind of relearn to tell my story, because normally if I'm talking about buying wheat calves, I'll say, yeah, we bought some 4 weights, kicked them out on wheat, gained 2 a day, had to doctor some, we had about a 5% death loss, and then we shipped them once they got about 8 to the yard. And our consumer understands none of that.
Yeah, right.
Good.
And so I had to
when
relearn.
I first came to America, I had to relearn some of
Oh,
that.
I bet so. Yeah. And so now, instead of saying that, like, man, we bought some cattle that were pretty young and they needed really nutritious feed. And so we did. We gave them wheat. It's super nutritious for them. Some of them probably going to get sick. And then I want to be there to save them with the life-saving antibiotics. And the good news is that antibiotic is not in your beef whenever it gets to your table. So it's my obligation to take care of that animal. And when it grows up and is healthy and ready to go to college, I'm going to send it to the feed yard where it's going to get the most efficient growth that it will ever get in its life. Mm-hmm. And when I can share that, that is way more understandable to our consumer than our lingo.
Yeah. And people are amazed because there's a full-time veterinarian on staff and a nutritionist on staff, and those animals actually get better care than most people do out there. I mean, it's just from a nutritional and vitamins and minerals and health and everything else. I mean, if people were looked after that way, it would just be shocking to them. But people think that we go in and we neglect them because they're or don't look after them, and so it's really interesting.
Factory farming is synonymous with neglect in a lot of these people's eyes, and
it's
absolutely not the case. So
when those nutritionists found out that most cattle on feed in the US have a nutritionist, they're like, so like you look at their protein intake? I was like, every day we look at their protein intake. Yeah,
it's fascinating. So curious.
Oh, this is gonna be a good question.
What?
I'm excited.
What is like something that maybe throughout this whole social media endeavor has surprised you? And what's maybe the most fun or thing that you never thought you would do? Because I know I saw you in New York City on Esquire, magazine's deal, and I was like, I know that guy.
Yeah, that's definitely part of the answer. Yeah. Social media has led me a lot of places that I never thought I'd be. One of those, I remember seeing Dale Brisby get paid to go to the NFR in 2016, and I was like, that is incredible. He wants to go there, and they're going to pay him to go there. I was like, all right, that is cool. And I got a call from Pendleton to go to Pendleton, Oregon to the roundup last year. And I was like, you're gonna pay me to go to that thing? What? And that was a cool moment. So
you're stealing Dale's customers, basically.
Yeah, sorry, Dale. But being able to go somewhere like Pendleton, Oregon, that I don't know when I would have gone, 20 years from now, I don't know, but to a place.
You get paid for this?
Yeah. Not this
Ian,
one.
we need to
Not
talk.
That's all. I mean, that is also another cool thing that it has supported the ranch through monetization, and it's supported my family. And people don't take it very seriously until I say this will be the year that I make more money doing social media than I will ranching. Yeah. And whenever you can that's a whole nother business. And whenever you treat it like one, it can be really good for whoever's doing it. And it doesn't have to be that way. Advocacy doesn't. There's a lot in our industry that a lot of people do for free. Yeah. And there are times to do that just being a part of it and sharing what we have. But New York was another really cool one. I mean, when
Esquire, a Vogue.
I thought you did Vanity
Fair.
Fair.
That was it. Yeah, sorry.
Like,
all those New York magazines. Sorry, Esquire and Vanity Fair.
Vanity Fair. Whenever that email came through, I was like, "Who's Vanity Fair?"
Oh, don't say that.
I know. I was so embarrassed. But
I'm sure your wife knew exactly.
She did. She was like, "Who? That's a scam."
Right.
Anyway, so I got to they were gonna fly me up there and in their studio, a clip they call expert reviews. And that's where they bring, like the ones I'd seen, they brought some veteran Marines, and they would watch clips from war movies, and then they would say like, well, here's what's real and here's what's fake. And so, I mean, it's just like the Yellowstone effect of this massive company that it's big enough to share these ranching movies, get a cowboy with a cowboy hat in there on stage or in front of the camera, and to talk about what's real and what's fake. I thought they were going to get me up there and ask me about cattle care, hormones, feed, killing the earth. But they were honestly purely curious about, they were asking really good questions. Cause I remember one was a scene from Yellowstone where a calf is born and it gets up and runs off. And I just talked about, like it's not true. We're at our place, we're there, we can see them, have them, not all the time, but we're there enough that we see them. And if they need help, we're there. And she was like, well, how do you know if they're having them? I said, well, they have a kink in their tail. And she was like, what do you mean? And it goes back to that lingo that we use. And so it was pretty cool for me to, when I thought I was saying really clear things, she even still was really good at digging into that of, well, what do you mean by kink in the tail? Or,
I remember that scene of Yellowstone. It was the first episode, and you're watching it, and this calf jumps up and runs away. I'm like, oh god,
I know, right?
Charlotte genetics.
That's as far as I got, right there.
Yeah, and I think it's
Canadian calves.
Yeah, but they all do that in Alberta. What are you talking about?
If they don't last long.
So that was really cool. I mean, getting to do things like that, and then shout out to my family for allowing me the time to do that and to be able to come to things like these, because I'm so glad that they see the value in it too. And it didn't just happen right away. 2021 was like, I'm going to do this. They're like, all right, you can have 3 days a week. That's not how it happened. But I was able to work and show the value and show the monetization and
Your dad gave you 3 days a week to do
No.
this?
No,
he said he didn't.
Just being facetious.
No.
Yeah.
He gave him 3 hours a week to do it.
Right.
Yeah, afterward. Yeah.
If it doesn't interfere.
So I am super thankful for that.
Yeah. Any other surprise? I mean, what's
what's been the
something
biggest
else?
viral moment? Like, obviously, you had that one early on, doing the one with your dad and copping Dale, but like, what's happened since then? Have you had bigger ones? Is it?
Oh yeah. I have I guess I've kind of become this guy who always posts running with the horse and a USA flag on July 4th. And
I was going to say that was huge because didn't the America, whatever Instagram page pick it up? Yeah, that was a big one.
Yeah, that's probably somewhere on all platforms around 18 to 20 million views.
Yeah.
Those are some of the big ones. A couple others. A couple of my skits have jumped up there into the multi-million view and on each platform. But the one, whenever I can play off that, rancher, American pride, family thing that kind of the beef industry is known for, just take it a little extra step. But that's where last month, I think I'd gotten over 12 million views last month. And that's where a lot of value, because even if I get 1% of those people to see value, that's still a whole lot of people.
I have 2 questions.
Ooh.
The first, what do you think is the biggest pushback from consumers on the beef industry, or what has been obviously your Instagram DMs probably fill up with questions, comments, and sometimes negative criticisms, right? Biggest, you can tell me multiple things, but what do consumers not appreciate about the beef industry? Or anything that we need to do better at?
Yeah. A lot of times some of their concerns are true. Whenever there is a place that they see that's overgrazed or animals that aren't taken care of that they see, those are real things that we as ranchers have to take care of. And as an industry, have to show that in every industry, there is a small percentage that do not do things right. And the beef industry has that. And so we either let those tell the story which is happening, or we tell the other 98% of the story that is extremely well done. Animals are well taken care of, cattle better taken care of, are better for the land, that's better for the rancher, that's better for the person that's eating at the table. And so when it becomes that win, if we can share that, it's even better. But some of those negative things, the more we're separated from animals, the more kind of we humanize them. And so that is kind of hard for them to understand that whenever one dies in the feedlot, that it's bad for us, but we don't cry about it and it doesn't break our heart. And it may break our hearts, but it's something that we deal with on the, maybe not daily, but plenty.
A percentage of the time.
A percentage of the time. And so whenever those things are hard to explain, of like, well, why don't you care that died? I'm like, well, I do. I do care, but now my care goes to the other that were in that pen. I was like, okay, I need to watch them, because if they get sick and that happens, like that's just where my focus has to go. And so that's one that's really hard to describe to consumers.
And if you haven't grown up in this industry or with animal agriculture, that is a hard one.
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
it's a very hard one.
anytime you're in nature, no matter what it is, right? Whether it's ranching, whether it could just be a wildlife biologist or whatever, you're dealing with life and death. I mean, it's part of, it's just part of life. And if you're not in that, if you're, live in an apartment in New York City and you go to the grocery store and eat beef, you really don't experience that. Right. And so I think that's more difficult for people that are a generation or two removed from the country to have those, to be able to deal with those things differently. Right.
Yeah. They
And
may have only seen a rat killed on the side of the road, not a deer. Right.
Right. Well, and so we deal with those things every day, because that's just life. Right. And we try to prevent it as much as possible. But I think, it's just, it's life to us, and it's not necessarily, a cruel thing or anything like that. It's just kind of the way life works. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's hard to describe, because if you say, well, that's just the way it is, like that doesn't go over very well.
Right. Yeah.
But to us, it is. Right.
Yeah.
Do you think as an industry, we're making better leaps and bounds towards explaining things like the use of implants, beta agonists, growth enhancing technologies to the consumer, or is there still a large disconnect? Have we made ground even in the last 5 years while you've been in more of an ag advocacy role? Do you think we've been
I think
successful?
we've lost ground in the last 5 years. Mostly because I don't think they knew about it before. And now since COVID, they've wanted to know more about their food than I ever remember. And so when they hear about, and it sounds bad, oh, you're pumping them full of hormones, you're giving them a hormone implant, that can be kind of scary. But we're answering, the beef industry has done a good job of answering with the data of like, here's the actual data, and and sometimes the data doesn't speak whenever it's an emotional thing, that the data is not understood, or even if it is understood, it's not listened to. But a majority of the cool thing is with that has come many more options in the local beef area. I'm glad there's options. I'm glad there's local beef. I'm glad there's beef at the store.
Yeah. And there's antibiotic free, there's hormone free,
right.
And in some ways that's been good for the beef industry. So those who
I
like
agree.
beef, there's actually another product they can buy.
Yes, there is a product. And that's the cool thing, is that whenever, that's what I love about the market, is that when that became a demand, it was filled pretty quick. It was like, oh yeah, we have that. But the one thing I don't like that has come from that is that ranchers have it's turned ranchers against each other, saying, their only way to sell their product is if, well, ours isn't pumped full of hormones and red dye like it is at the grocery store. It's like, what? Why are we lying?
Yeah. Or making a comment that, ground beef from a large commercial scale packing system is not as safe as ground beef from a local abattoir.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct. And that's frustrating. And
Very
I see
frustrating.
that. I see that a lot. It's one of those deals where when you, if you're not on one side, you get hit by stones from each side when you're on the fence. And that's where I find myself, is like, I am appreciative of the amount of beef that the U.S. is producing. And I also produce my own local beef. And so I am on both sides, and I'd never trash against one side or the other, but I will go for those people who are saying who are saying lies or are leading the conversations with fear rather than facts. That's one time where I will go into the comment section and be like, look, let's talk about the facts here. No more about fear mongering. And I like to make videos about that too, that are kind of funny, because when somebody says, hey, my beef doesn't have any mRNA vaccine, it's like, none of them do.
Yeah.
So why are you making them feel like they do?
Yeah.
That's when I'm on the airplane or something, I'll be sitting beside somebody and they're like, oh yeah, I get my beef from here and it's hormone. I'm like, it's all hormone free.
Yeah.
What are we talking about? Right.
Literally. Yeah.
And
so
I'm
whenever
like,
those facts are, we have that story on our side.
Yeah.
Right. Because when the truth is told, we win. And that's the cool part, is that we have nothing to hide. We just get to tell the truth.
There's nothing greater than seeing your cattle grazing on lush green pasture.
Oh yeah, and nothing ruins that view like weeds and brush soaking up all the moisture and nutrients. Regardless of precipitation, we have to take care of our pastures. It doesn't rain grass.
The passion for cattle ranching starts early. So should the protection. Let's keep our pastures in good hands with Corteva Agriscience. To learn more, visit rangeandpasture.com.
Yeah, well, I tell people, do you trust, the aspirin or whatever you take and all this? And they're like, yeah, well, I'm like, same people regulate beef, right? I mean, I'm like, it's the same thing. It's
good point.
If
I've never used that before,
yeah,
but I'm going to.
Well, and if you tell me, and if you, if you think that anything like that is happening, I said, people can go to jail, right, and we're not going to risk the health of our animal, but we're also not going to go to jail for it, right? I mean, it's just the way it is, and people will go to prison for that, and that's just not going to happen. And it's regulated, and it's
Well, at the end of the day, like, we're all producing beef. We want the beef industry to be bigger and better, and we want consumers to have choice even within the beef industry.
And the choice is important.
And that's what drives the premiums for beef, is that ability for consumers to choose a prime, choose an antibiotic free. Like, if they want to make that grass fed, even, which we can debate about that, but like, I think we should be very proud of the choice as a beef industry, because otherwise we end up like chicken, and we should be promoting it, not knocking each other at the same time. Like,
I agree. And it just goes back to that the options are really good, and a high tide rises all ships.
Yeah.
That if we can do that, and we've seen beef demand grow how much in the past 20 years?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So change topic. You just mentioned something. Sorry.
Oh, here we go.
You talked about diving into your comments.
Yeah.
Like, someone who's getting into this and like gets the haters.
Good point.
And dives into the comments. You're a rancher who's getting into it and they're getting completely discouraged. How often do you dive into your comments? Which ones do you warrant a response to? Like, how are you not just depressed the whole time as well? Like,
you can dive into my comments.
If you'd read all those comments, there'd be some where you'd be like, I should go just knock myself off.
Yeah, that's true. Any video that goes viral has a bunch of that, a bunch of hate from it, because that's what pushes the algorithm. That's what gets people fighting each other, and that's why political stuff tends to go viral, is because it makes people fight in the comments.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I love people. I love to be loved on. I like being liked by people and being around. I'm a social butterfly. And so whenever I first started getting those, I was like, it's kind of hurt my feelings.
So that's a clippable moment, right? Tucker Brown going, I'm a social butterfly.
Yeah, nobody knew that.
Sorry. That'll be on all our shorts now.
Yeah. And so whenever I first started getting those, I was like, dang, dude's being rude, from within the ag industry and outside. Okay. A lot of them are from within too. So you have to be ready for that if you are going to do this, you will have people typing behind a keyboard at you who will never see you, who you will never talk to, and that no matter if you put your energy into that or not, nothing will happen. And so I was putting my energy into it, and it was draining me. But I had a guy tell me, he was like, all right, he's like, let's think about this 30,000 foot view. What are you making these videos for? Are you doing it for, do you want a lot of views? I said, yeah, I do. And he's like, okay. What happens on every video that gets a bunch of views? I was like, well, I get a lot of comments. He's like, okay. Get a lot of comments. So is that a part of the success? I was like, yeah, it is. Who's it? And then he was like, who are these comments coming from? I was like, well, really people inside the industry and out. He said, okay, well, who are you trying to reach? I said, kind of people inside the industry and out. He was like, all right, so that is a sign that you are doing what you want to do. And I do respond to some, because you will never change somebody's mind who made the comment. You'll never. But you can make an impact on somebody who's reading the comments. And if I get to a comment and I'm responding emotionally, I will leave and not respond at all. But if I respond with the data, with the facts, then I know I'm not going to change their mind. But if somebody reads that, then that's where I have the opportunity to make the impact.
I think that's a good note So I mean, like I'm in some of the feeder stalker group Facebook pages just to see what people are chatting about, to see if there's anything in there that I could do a better job of in research and extension. And you got to always be aware that somebody else is going to read those comments. It's just not the naysayer that's arguing with you. It's the 240 other people that are reading their comment and then wanting to see your response.
Yep.
And so even though you feel like maybe you weren't successful in having the conversation with the one naysayer who wasn't going to listen to you anyway, they just wanted to put it out there, you might have changed the minds of the 239 other people that saw that you took the time to respond and you gave them the facts, not the fiction.
So true.
Yeah. And then how do you not take it personal on some of them, right? I mean,
that'd be the hard.
Yeah,
there are personal shots for sure.
Oh yeah, for sure.
There are personal shots, and I mean, honestly, it just made I have thicker skin. I don't know if it's described as thick skin, but I have thicker skin, especially when it comes to social media. But my friend was like, "Do you remember, say, your last viral video? Do you remember any of the mean things they said?" And I was like, "No, actually, I don't." He was like, "Well, why are you putting energy into things that you will not remember, but will wear you down?"
Yeah, I heard a football coach say, don't pay attention to a comment from a critic that you wouldn't take advice from.
I like that a lot.
Right.
I like that a lot.
Yeah. So if you don't worry about it. So.
And it's easy to say.
Yeah.
But there are some personal shots in there, and sometimes I have to take a look at that and be like, all right.
Yeah, fair dues.
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah, I mean, sometimes. Yep.
But so despite those negatives, like the more people we can get like yourself who are starting to talk about this industry and telling your story, I see as just a positive, right? So I know there's competition out there now for views and stuff, but at the same time, what would you say to people who are thinking about doing this, thinking about trying to tell their story, like? What are the mindset they need to have when they go into it? Obviously, apart from ignoring the haters, what do they need to do?
Well, my dad always has a saying. He says, we don't have to change, but we have to compete with those who do. And if we're not marketing our product, whether that's weaned calves, whether that's yearlings, whether that's some type of crop, I mean, we're missing out on opportunity. And Will Rogers, I think, said it best that, not marketing yourself is like winking at a girl in the dark, and nobody knows what's going on but you. And that's so true.
It's great.
That if even if we have a great product and nobody knows what it is, it doesn't matter. So there's always room for that. I don't care what company you're in. I feel like there's always, maybe there's one or two out there that somebody's going to throw at me in the comments, but I think there's always room for marketing ourselves. And if you're wanting to start, it doesn't have to be you who's listening, but there's room for somebody who's coming back to the business. There's room for niece, nephew, spouse to find their role in that. And what I like social media kind of helps us find, in ag, we kind of feel boxed in, that if we want to do something different, we have to go outside the box and spend a whole lot of money. And then the bosses are like, well, we don't want to do that. How about you just go drive the feed truck? And then that's where our generation feels like we're suppressed. But social media has given me my avenue of like, well, I can still stay on the feed truck, but instead, I can add more value to the box that we feel already boxed in. And I have this, when I go and speak, I have this slide of, it's a 4x4 box, with squares in it. And, I yell out to the audience, I'm like, all right, how many boxes do we see? Everybody's like 16. And then one person says 17, because the one on the outside. And then everybody's mind goes to like, what?
Well, you could break them into fours inside of there.
Then you can break, 2x2. Then you can go 3x3. And so then when we started, we only thought we had 16. We're boxed in. But by the end, you have 26 squares, and you've added way more value to your box than you thought you already had. So social media has been that for us, and it can be for a whole lot of other people. There's plenty of room in the as far as competition. Like, I do not feel like there's any competition for me. Not because I am better than them, but because there is so much room for that in the digital space of social media. And so as somebody wanting to start, like, let's just stick to the things we know. What do we know? Well, we're cutting hay this week. Let's talk about that. Well, we're weaning calves here in 2 weeks. What are you doing to prep for that? What are the diseases that you're trying to prevent with your vaccines? Are you prepping your weaning pen with shade and a good fence and things that maybe others don't think about? I mean, that's where training your mind to find what that is to share happens. And so I always say, correct.
Yeah, like cleaning a water tank.
Yes. Yeah, just I could do a full video over
Mhm.
why I clean a water tank.
Mhm.
There's nothing greater than seeing your cattle grazing on lush green pasture.
Oh yeah, and nothing ruins that view like weeds and brush soaking up all the moisture and nutrients. Regardless of precipitation, we have to take care of our pastures. It doesn't rain grass.
The passion for cattle ranching starts early. So should the protection. Let's keep our pastures in good hands with Corteva Agriscience. To learn more, visit rangeandpasture.com.
And that just takes training your mind. I've been training it for 4 or 5 years now, but I always say start by once a week after you have your ranch plan. You pick one spot in there on something you're doing that you know a lot about and you can share what you're doing. Hey, my name's Jim Johnson. We're at this ranch and we're weaning next week and we have some fence that's down. I got to make sure that this fence is right so that these calves stay in. That way I can keep a really good eye on them. And if they get sick, I'm there to give them the life-saving antibiotics that they need. Bam. You do that and you have to do it for an extended period of time. 6 months. I always say 1 post a week, 6 months. Then your mind starts to get trained. Then you start to see the value of people, your views going up. And just like anything, it takes consistency.
Yeah, I think that's the key. Consistency and sort of that diligence to keep going.
Yes.
Right? Because you'll get to a point where you're like, either this isn't working or I'm getting tired of doing it.
Right.
Right. And pushing through that is where it really starts getting
through the first plateau. Yeah, you get through the first plateau and winning is fun. I mean, seeing those results is fun. And if you're not having fun with it, boy, I'd quit real quick.
Right.
Because it'll eat you alive just like anything else.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I love to do those skits. Like that's where I have a blast.
Mm-hmm.
And they can be a little cheesy and they can be, a little, I don't know, others wouldn't want to be in it, but that's all right. I don't mind.
See, I love the fact that you love them. And when I see your team do them as well, I'm like, I wonder how much it took him to convince them to actually do that stuff.
It does take some convincing sometimes.
But it's interesting because, just even out in Virginia, I'll get people like, hey, do you know the R.A. Brown Ranch? Hey, I'd like to do an internship there. You know what I mean? And it's just, there are just people, no matter where you're at, that are, that are sure engaged.
And you bring a good point up there. We thought we had I feel like we have a really good internship program.
Mm-hmm.
And we were fighting to find interns. I mean, we were knocking down doors at Texas Tech and A&M and Tarleton and just couldn't find anybody. You're like, I didn't know we had to market this. To now, that was when I came home in 2018. To now, we have 95 applications on our last one, and we need 3.
So I have a question. What do you do with the 92 do you guys send them to other ranches? Do you recommend them to other ranches? Okay, good.
That's become a newer thing.
Yeah, that's a critical thing.
Because and that's also hard to find of people who want to do the internship
We'll chat
program.
after, Tucker.
Okay, sounds good. Because we need more places. We need more places.
Well, I got lots for you, and I need feed yard interns in a bad way.
My way. Oh, that's another one. We can talk about that later. But that's where I tell people to go. They always ask me how to get in, and the feed yard is just a phenomenal place to start.
Mm-hmm.
Where were we before that? The internship program. Yeah. So just through social media and people finding out about it, even though I thought we had been doing it since the year 2000. So, 18 years, I didn't think we had to push it out. But the moment social media started in 21, 22, 23, it just exploded in applicants, which has been awesome.
Yeah.
Annoying because I have to go through 95 applications, but really good because we get some of the best across the country.
Yeah. Good.
So what's next? I mean, I know there's some exciting stuff happening with the ranch. with the Ranchers Alliance, and you might want to talk about that a bit. But like, what else is happening for you next? Like, where do you see this going?
Somebody asked me, they're like, "Are you going to still be making TikToks when you're 45?" I was like, I don't know. I hadn't thought that far.
Probably won't be TikTok by then, though.
Yeah, it can be something different, right? But thinking in that, it feels like long form social media is the long game, and that's YouTube, that's podcast, that's this. And I feel like this is the long game, even though it is really hard to start and really it plateaus. It feels like a lot faster than 12-second, making those 12-second clips. But yeah, I feel like YouTube and my podcast are things that are next. In my mind, if my perfect empire would be that in 10 years that I like to visualize things and kind of bring it to life. And so, in 10 years, I hope that I have this registered ranching experience where I'm able to bring in, the Dallas Cowboys quarterback, and he ranches with me for a day, and I cook him a steak that night, and then we do a podcast the next morning. That's what's been going through my head in the past year as I've been starting the Registered Ranching podcast. And then that's just a part of me reaching outside of the ag industry and bringing people in. Which what I found along the way is when I do that, I reach my bull customers along the way. But if I shoot for the bull customers, I never reach the end consumer. Mm-hmm. But I can do both if I try to reach the consumer.
Have them say it, Grandma Linda's bed and breakfast.
Yeah. I already have. One of them, I had my first one the other day, not the Cowboys quarterback, Jess Pryles. I had an Aussie. Aussie was the first one. Jess Pryles, she lives here in Austin and does hardcore carnivore seasoning and is a live fire cook and not in the ranching industry, but in the beef industry, kind of with her cook. Yeah, and so she came out and we rode horses and moved some cows, and she palpated a cow, and everybody loves talking about their cows and their ranch, and I get to share that with people who think it's so cool. Yeah, and I loved it. Yeah. I loved it. Awesome. But that's what's next. For me.
Most famous person you've met, but most famous person you'd like to have on the podcast.
Ooh, those are good.
Jim Johnson, probably the most famous person. Most famous person. So the most famous person I've had on the podcast?
Yeah, I had on the podcast. I met out of what you've done.
Okay. Well, Justin McKee, the Cowboy Channel host, has been one of my favorite broadcasters, communicators for a long time. And I got to have him on the podcast, and that was just really neat. I've got a PRCA bronc rider coming tomorrow to do it. And so I'm excited about that one. But as far as famous folks, Dale Brisby is kind of is a guy who is. He is famous now. Yeah, there are a lot of Aussies though.
Yeah, you have to get a few Aussies, especially in the PBR.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of Aussies over there. Last year I got to be with Josh Frost, and he wasn't on the podcast, but I got to meet him, and the other bronc rider. Hang on. Yeah, I got to spend some time with him last year. Dang, I've been around a bunch of Aussies.
Yeah, I know.
Be careful. They get you in trouble.
So that and social media made all that. That was all through social media. The biggest person I want is I would love to have Jim Nance on the podcast. Jim Nance being one of he's a sports broadcaster for CBS. CBS, I think it's CBS. And so he does the Masters. He does football. He does everything. And he's one of the best communicators I've ever seen. Huh. And his ability, he covered, what was it? I think it was the Preakness horse race in 2011. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of a defining moment where I wanted to be an announcer.
In the beef business, every decision counts. Drovers delivers the expert analysis, market updates, and real-world reporting that cattle producers rely on to make smart, profitable decisions. From market updates to policy shifts and animal health, Drovers delivers expert reporting and real-world analysis that helps producers stay ahead. With a mission to help beef producers become more profitable, every story is built around what matters most to the cattle industry. Get informed. Get drovers.
Was listening to him announce that race, and it like gave me chills the way the race happened, and he called it, and I was like, I want to do that one day.
That's cool.
I want to do that. And so that's where I got into sports radio, and sports radio taught me to be able to paint a picture in somebody's mind, and now I'm able to pair that with video, and here we are.
Yeah, cool. No books in the future or anything like that?
Oh, that definitely.
Everybody wants to write a book.
Not my strength. Not my strength. I'll stay away from that one. But so learning more about the ranches in the future too, and I work at the ranch every day. We meet at the saddle house at, depending on the time of year, at 6, and we get our plan, and we do some registered ranching. I mean, that's what we do.
I've obviously had your dad on my podcast, and that story, I mean, people just love listening to the story, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what I enjoy about the podcast. I get to tell stories. I get to allow people to tell their stories, right?
Right.
And I really don't say much.
Yeah.
And I really enjoy those stories of how the ranch got started and how it grew and the challenges they had and just all those things. And I think that's a fun part for me of what I do too. And it's a little different, but I enjoy it. So.
Oh, absolutely. Who'd you think I was going to say of who I wanted on the podcast?
That's a good one. You said a quarterback. I assumed it would be somebody a little more, like, I don't
Tony
know.
Romo was also another one.
Secretary of Agriculture.
The Kelsey brothers.
You know what I mean?
I would, if Brooke Rollins wants, if you're listening, you want to talk, drop one text. Wherever you want me to go, I'll meet you there.
But something like I assumed it'd be somebody a little more,
professional.
Like
I thought it'd be a pro golfer based on how you're talking about the Masters.
The Masters. Well, that's just one of my favorite videos, I guess. Yeah.
Adam Sandler.
New documentary. Happy Gilmore
Sandler. We'll hook you up. So, everybody seems to want to get Taylor Sheridan on. I mean, that seems like
everybody does. He's pretty impressive what he's built.
Yeah, it really is.
Love it or hate it, it is pretty impressive.
Well, and just him bringing to light sort of ranching again.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. And that's kind of cool because
I've loved the effect.
Bring the romance to ranching.
Yeah.
That was the other side.
I visited my dad here recently, and we set up and watched old westerns.
Yeah.
And it's nice to have that next generation now with new westerns. You know what I mean? It's kind of cool. So
there was one thing that cracks me up all the time of the people typically the people who I've talked to who have really put Yellowstone down are lonesome dove lovers.
Mm-hmm.
Like they love Lonesome Dove. I was like, you're telling me everything on Lonesome Dove is real? You ever seen,
right?
You ever seen that many snakes in a river? Come on.
That was one of your questions. Was it one of your questions on Vanity Fair? Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this has been fun, man. I really appreciate you coming in and learning about, AU and what you're doing, but just the power of, social media. As ranchers, we don't think about it a lot of times as, we need to be out there. We need a video. We need to tell our story. And I think what you've done with it, and, humbly, you're the main guy right now in the ranching industry that's doing this. And I think that's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Keep it going. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
We need more people like you that really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's fun. I had a guy tell me, or I kind of say it now once I heard it, that he said, if a picture's worth 1,000 words and a video's worth 1,000 pictures, then a good example's worth 1,000 videos. And it takes us being that good example to do that, because the bad examples right now are leading the way, and we definitely need more people with good examples for our industry. Thank y'all.
Yeah, great.
Thank you.
Stay tuned. It's time for Ian, Jess, and I to go behind the beef. Yeah, so that was a fun one. What'd you guys think?
Yeah, I think Tucker has a pretty good understanding of how to connect with consumers and producers across the industry. Very enlightening to hear, just his success in the area, but the opportunities that he's had and the consumers that he's been able to influence. So it's I think very exciting for us as an industry to know that content on ranching and farming and cattle raising is wanted by our consumers.
Yeah, look, I love catching up with Tucker. Like, it's the authenticity that comes through every time you talk to him. Like, none of that stuff you see on social media or anything else feels like he's really faking it. I know he does skits, but, you know, that really is him. So he's always a fun guy to sit down with and have a conversation and do stuff. But, you know, we need more people like him in the industry. And the more we can support people like him to get the message out, tell the story. You know, what's really interesting is like the amount he's looking at the data and then doing stuff to design that. And, you know, even, you know, the way we all talk, how consumers just wouldn't understand that as well. So, and he's done a great job of starting to really get behind the way a consumer thinks, not necessarily how other ranchers think. And I think that's really is a key to a lot of his success, is speaking in a way that everyone understands.
Yeah, several things like stuck out to me. I mean, how much has grown over the last, whatever it's been, 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
The value of doing it to both, you know, the industry and their ranch, right?
Yeah.
The fact that he can monetize it, you know, to the point that he has is amazing.
Yeah.
And then the final thing is he has fun with it.
Yeah.
I think that's a key component of it, because back to the authenticity of it, right? I mean, if he wasn't having fun with it, you'd know.
Yeah.
And he wouldn't be nearly as successful.
Yeah. And look, I think it's the key to anyone who wants to do it. Like, I listen to that, like, be authentic. Like, if you're going to be the person going out to do that, don't try and have a social media image and your own personal image behind closed doors. Like, just be you.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's really cool to catch up with someone like that. It is just him, right? Like, off he goes. So, but people want this. We speak to brands and retailers. They want to know the stories behind the beef, and they want to know what's happening. And you know, we all talk about the data and, you know, all of that sort of stuff, but that's not actually what they want. Like, when they talk about traceability, and we're all like, don't put an EID in the air in some cases, and other people like want EIDs in the air, they're not doing it to track cattle. They're doing it to help tell a story.
Right.
And I think those stories are really, really important. And I think that's what's helped the beef industry grow in the last 4 or 5 years. And, you know, some of the conversations we've had about markets on the last one is, you know, that's super interesting as well, in that is as much about how consumers perceive beef and the positive momentum. So, you know, as I said on the show, just huge thanks to Tucker, and we need more people like it.
Yeah, I think the other interesting side of it is we see advertising changing in this industry, and we probably didn't get into that as much with Tucker, but you know, you used to buy a print ad in a magazine or a radio spot or something like that. But this avenue of advertising products is really starting to increase as well. And so, you know, especially for us in the beef industry, if we wanted to advertise someplace, I mean, these are growing opportunities for people to advertise their products and services as well. And so that's kind of interesting to see how that's evolved.
Yeah.
Whether it's a ranch or whether it's, you know,
whiskey.
Or whiskey or whatever. Yeah.
I think it was really critical when he talked about humanizing still the beef industry, right? The relationship that we have with our cattle and the care that we have for the land, and that we're not just factory farmers, that you can have thousands of head of cattle, and those cattle have the most detailed, in-depth nutrition and care because we care so deeply about them.
Mm-hmm.
But it also influences our bottom line tremendously, making sure that animal welfare and animal health is top notch. So,
but his point was even more than that, which I really liked, which is like, you can tell people that's what we're doing, but if you show them you're the person out there chipping ice on a Sunday morning to get those cattle, and you're out there caring for them, like, that is way more powerful. Totally. And I think that's what was like interesting about that, is you don't have to tell people when you're showing them like that. So
totally.
Yeah. Yep. So, Jim, does it encourage you to create a TikTok channel or not? Or is that
yeah, someone's to find somebody to do that for me. I don't know.
Applications are now open.
That is a voice for TikTok, if ever I've heard one.
That's it for this episode of the Future of Beef Show. And a big thank you to our guest for joining us and sharing their experience and insights on this topic. Hit the subscribe button for more great episodes like this one. If you want to dig deeper into what you heard today, head over to futureofbeef.com, where you'll find free resources and helpful links. Don't forget, we'll pick one listener to win this exclusive Future of Beef Yeti Cooler. Follow us on Facebook or Instagram and drop us a message for a chance to win. Until next time, Keep your boots on the ground and your eyes on the future.